Alright, good. Okay, there we go. We're back in. Bhakti and Carol and Manjesh, please quickly let me know if the volume is back up where it should be, so that you can all hear whatever it is we're going to be discussing this evening. Kura is in the chat room. He's just finished his Gita coaching session prior to this, so volume's great. There we go. Okay, we're back in line. So, as I was saying, many of you know we've been doing this program for, I don't know, what, close to 2 years now? A year and a half, something like that? And we've tried our best to be as regular and every week as we're able to. We're going to augment that a bit, starting with this show. We're going to be doing every other week. So every other week, once every 2 weeks, we're going to be broadcasting on Monday nights. Just with other things going on, it's been a little difficult for all of us here to keep up the Monday night every week. So we just want to let you know that. I'll mention it again when we sign off. Those of you that are in contact with others, either in the chat room or that discuss things like that, you can, pass that around if you would. So let's go ahead and start with this evening. And part of what we're going to discuss this evening has to do with the mood of Krishna consciousness that we develop and try to develop in our devotional service. The pastimes of Radha and Krishna are the ultimate focus in the life of a devotee. Yet these pastimes are not very approachable by common people of this world, persons like yourself and myself. We don't have so much of an ability or an access given to us for approaching these. These pastimes of the Lord are very carefully guarded by his associates, by his intimate assistants and intimate followers. And there's two primary personalities that guard these pastimes of Srimati Radhika and Krishna Chandra. And those are Lalita and Vishaka. Now, Lalita and Vishaka protect Srimati Radharani, protect her in the higher esoteric sense from the mischievous pastimes of Krishna, and protect her pastimes with Krishna from, in one sense, the intrusion of the elderly members of the Gopas and Gopis, and certainly from the intrusion of persons who are not pure and capable of entering into those pastimes, persons like us. So, by their grace, we do have the ability to enter into these pastimes of Radha and Krishna. Now, of course, this comes after quite some period of time of performing sadhana bhakti under the instruction of one's spiritual master. This cannot be a premature thing. Srila Prabhupada spoke very strongly on this point of sahajaism, of prematurely thinking oneself and acting in such a way of being advanced when one really isn't. But yet, this is the goal of our Krishna consciousness, to enter into these pastimes. So, for this reason, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his associates appeared on this world. They came to give the most uncommon access to the most uncommon pastimes to the most common persons like us in this Kali Yuga through the means of the Sri Harinam Sankirtan movement. This included chanting, dancing, distribution of prasadam, the distribution of the holy names, the spreading of Krishna consciousness, and all the different aspects as we are given in the example of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. After all, Sri Krishna is manifest in this age as Lord Chaitanya. Lord Chaitanya is Krishna in the mood of Srimati Radharani. Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Radha Krishna Nahi Anya. This is his manifestation. So, by chanting the holy names of Krishna in this proper mood, under the due guidance and direction of a spiritual master, one can develop an understanding of these pastimes of the Lord. When one comes to that platform, the very bodily designations, the intensity of false ego, the ahankar, the thinking that we are all of these identities and exchanges and relationships of this world, all of this simply melts away as the development and understanding of love of God begin to manifest under the influence of the holy name. This comes by the causeless mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his most merciful form as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and by his dissociates who have come particularly to deliver those of us who are suffering in the pitfalls of Kali Yuga. Krishna descends in the Kali Yuga as his holy name, and the personality who brings that holy name to us is Krishna himself, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Yet, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has an internal purpose as well. And that internal purpose is to understand clearly the mood of Srimati Radharani's intense love for Krishna, and the feeling that she understands when there is separation. To understand this, the Lord never appears by himself. He never appears alone. He always comes with his associates, sends those in advance to arrange things and set the stage, and then brings associates with him and has other associates come after him in this way. Now, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami explains that this is the internal purpose which is revealed and facilitated by Lalita Shaki in Krishna's pastimes as she appears in Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes as Svarupa Damodara Goswami. Svarupa Damodara Goswami is a direct incarnation of the internal mood of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, just as the Lalita is a direct expansion of Srimati Radhika herself. So we'll see this more in the pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as they are engaged with and exchanged with Svarupa Damodara Goswami. Now, we've discussed many times previously how the notebook, the writing of Murari Gupta during the Navadvip Lila, during the times when Lord Chaitanya had his youthful pastimes, his Adi Lila and some of his Madhya Lila, that these activities were recorded by Murari Gupta. Murari Gupta was present and able to give these to the devotees. They were intact, and he passed them on to the devotees directly, and these formulated. Now, in the same way, Svarupa Damodara Goswami, who was the personal secretary of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu during his Puri Leela in Jagannath Puri, he kept also such a notebook. Being the secretary of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu meant that he was responsible for his meals, for his bath, for his arranging for appointments with other devotees, for his engagements for kirtan, for his massage, anything that had to do with the personal service of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu fell under the direction, authority, and responsibility of Svarupa Damodara Goswami. Svarupa Damodara Goswami kept these pastimes of the Lord as his most valuable gem in the storehouse of his appreciation of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And he passed those on, placed that gem around the neck of his associate and follower, Raghunath Das Goswami. Raghunath Das Goswami then passed these on to Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami when Raghunath went to Vrindavan and resided there and shared all these pastimes with the devotees. So this is the source material we have on the relationship between Svarupa Damodara Goswami and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and on Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's later pastimes, his Antya Lila, as we will come to hear a little bit later. So this is the source material for all the Chaitanya Lila literatures that we find. Chaitanya Bhagavat, Chaitanya Mangala, Chaitanya Charitamrita, they predominantly come from these devotees. So let's talk a little bit about Svarupa Damodara Goswami's earlier life. His previous name was Purushottamacharya, and his father's name was Padmagarbha, and his grandfather's name was Jayaram Chakravarti. Now, He was born in Bitadia, which is a small village in what we now know is what was then East Bengal. And Jairam Chakravarti, the grandfather, was actually a resident of Navadvip. And he arranged for his daughter to marry Padmagarbha Acharya, who was Purushottam's father. And so then the couple left, and they came and resided after some time in Navadvip. And shortly after there, Svarupa Damodara Goswami was born. Padmagarbha, after the birth of the child, he was very Brahminical by nature, very Brahminical in his habits and his studies. And so after some time, he left the family in the care of the father-in-law, Purushottam's grandfather, Jairam Chakravarti, and he then went to travel to the different holy places. Matila, Kashi, he studied Vedanta, he studied the different Vedas like that. Now, interestingly enough, in Benares, Padmagarbha met Lakshmipati. Lakshmipati, of course, was the guru of Madhavendra Puri, and he took initiation from him. So, very interesting connection here, how we kind of backdate this a bit, and we see that the senior members there were kind of connected all in this way. We find this in so many of the pastimes of the devotees. So, Purushottam was brought up in Navadvip and at his maternal uncle's house. And he, of course, during that time had the association of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who was Nimai Pandit. And he was extremely loyal to Lord Gauranga. It mentions his loyalty to Lord Gauranga was just amazing. He was always with him like this. After some number of years in the Navadvip pastimes, we know that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took sannyas. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu left his home and went and shaved off his beautiful hair, many devotees were not able to, shall we say, tolerate this mood of renunciation, this separation from the Lord. And so in this way, Purushottam Acharya became completely mad. And Chaitanya Charitamrita describes half mad, but he became completely beside himself. And so he decided also, I will take sannyas as well. What is the good of anything in this world? So he went to Varanasi, and he met one sannyasi named Chaitanya Ananda. Now remember, Varanasi, as we've described many times, very many Mayavadi sannyasis there. So he decided he would also take sannyas from this Mayavadi sannyasi, Chaitanya Ananda, and study Vedanta, and then teach it to the people in general. This was the instruction he was given by his sannyas guru. And there's a very interesting point in Svarupa Damodar's taking of sannyas. He was already a great renunciate and a very great scholar as well. As we've mentioned, Navadvip was the seat of scholarly intellectual pursuit at the time. So with his heart and soul, he took shelter, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, and he decided in taking sannyas that he did not want any disturbance in his worship of the Lord. This Nimai Pandit taking sannyas was a great disturbance to him, and he wanted to be able to just focus on worshiping Krishna with no disturbances. For this reason, he did not accept many of the common externals of sannyas. He didn't take a danda. He, gave up the tuft of hair that's usually kept. He didn't keep a sacred thread. Didn't accept the saffron-colored dress. Many of these different things that would have naturally brought respect to him. Because you remember that this was one of the promptings in Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's taking of sannyas, that his students and some of the common people were not properly respecting him. And he knew, I've appeared to give them love of God, but if they don't respect me, so in taking sannyas, naturally he would gain respect. People would honor him, and thus they would be tricked into devotional service. So Svarupa Damodar did not want, he accepted the name Svarupa, He did not want Svarupa Goswami to be worshipped or honored in this way, so he renounced many of these different aspects. So, in due course of time, he came to hear that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had settled in Jagannath Puri, and that in settling in Jagannath Puri, he desired very much to go there and be with him. He took the permission of his guru, Chaitanyananda, who told him, yes, you go and preach Vedanta in Puri. So, in this way, he traveled to Jagannath Puri, hearing that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was there. But when he arrived in Puri, he found out that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was no longer here. He's gone to South India. He's traveling all over South India, spreading the love of God and Harinam Sankirtan there. So, Svarupa Damodar, continuing in this mood of renunciation and in this mood of humble presentation of his devotional service, kept himself very much in a secluded state of being and chanted and studied for 2 years while Mahaprabhu toured, waiting for the return of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to Puri. So for 2 years he was just a humble, quiet, secluded devotee living in Puri, waiting for Sri Chaitanya to come back. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu finally returned to Jagannath Puri, he understood, of course, that Svarupa Damodar Goswami is here, and he sought out that Svarupa Damodar should be brought to him. When Svarupa Damodar came before Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he threw himself at the Lord's feet, grasping his feet and offering obeisances. And he offered the following prayer, and this prayer has been passed down, since the time of Mahaprabhu, so I want to read this, a very, very nice prayer. O ocean of mercy, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, please let there be an awakening of your auspicious mercy, which drives away material lamentation by making everything pure and blissful. Indeed, your mercy awakens transcendental bliss and covers all material pleasures. By your auspicious mercy, all quarrels and disagreements vanquish. Your auspicious mercy pours forth transcendental mellows and thus causes jubilation within the heart. Your mercy is full of joy and always brings forth devotional service and glorifies love of God. May this transcendental bliss be awakened within my heart by your causeless mercy. As he was saying this, tears were flowing from his eyes, washing the feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Svarupa Damodar Goswami had such a humble and gentle nature, was such a pure-hearted devotee. He became the life and soul of all the Vaishnavas in Puri at that time by this mood. He became dear, intimate friends with Lord Nityananda. He shared a deep love with Advaita Acharya. He developed deep personal friendship with Paramananda Puri. And so many more other devotees, so many devotees were his personal close associates. Now, Bhaktivinoda Thakur states that when love of God awakens in the heart of a person, 2 things happen. When love of God awakens in the heart, 2 things happen. One is that love of God manifests itself towards other devotees as intimate, selfless friendship with the Vaishnavas. When we see that developing in ourselves, that's the beginning of a symptom. And the second thing is that love of God manifests itself toward the conditioned souls as pure compassion and genuine concern and love for their well-being. So these are the 2 symptoms when love of God manifests. Sri Svarupa Damodar then offered his obeisances again to the Lord and embraced him. The Lord then embraced him. The Lord lifted him up from the ground and embraced him. And the Lord said, today I saw in a dream that you were coming. Everything now is just as it should be. Just as one who is blind becomes happy in getting his eyesight, so I have now become happy upon seeing you and having you here with me. Svarupa Damodar Goswami responded to the Lord, "Oh, my Lord, please forgive me, because forgetting you, I deserted your lotus feet. Not having a trace of love of God in me, not having a taste for prema, I left your service, and I became a sinful person and went to a foreign place and accepted shelter from someone else." Here he's indicating his having left and taken sannyas in Varanasi. "Although I abandoned you, you did not abandon me. By the ropes of your mercy, you have bound me by the neck and dragged me back to your lotus feet." Now, this is a common phrase that is used in the prayers of the acharyas, particularly Narottam uses this a lot. The Goswamis would use it in their prayers to Lord Chaitanya. When one is taking care of animals, raising them, it's quite common you will bind an animal by the rope around the neck and take them to where you want to go. You have to drag them somewhere. You have to lead them some way. So you tie them in this way, and that way they are kept close at hand, not able to get away, so to speak. So in the same way, the devotees pray that, "My dear Lord, you have bound me by the neck by your ropes of mercy and have brought me to your lotus feet." So in this way, offering this wonderful prayer, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu heard Svarupa Damodar speak in this way, and he embraced him and said, "Sri Krishna is very kind. By his mercy, we now are together once again." So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu didn't give any concern to the fact that Svarupa Damodar had gone here or done that. He simply took the fact that Svarupa Damodar was now there, and that in their company with each other, they would begin to relish the different rasas, the different relationships of devotional service. So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Svarupa Damodar always stayed close. Svarupa Damodar was always there with the Lord during Puri. Whatever mood the Lord had, Svarupa Damodar would perform a kirtan that would augment the Lord's particular sentiments. They would encourage whatever mood it was that the Lord was in. And it was around this same time that the Lord noticed the incredible music abilities that Svarupa Damodar had. He was a very good singer. He was a very expert musician. So he gave him the name Damodar. And he became Svarupa Damodar. And this is how the full name of Svarupa Damodar came to be, how he was known. Now, at this time, while Svarupa Damodar was there with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Puri, another devotee arrived. This devotee came from South India, and his name was Ramananda Roy. He arrived from Vijayanagara. And Ramananda Roy was a great, great poet. And he could explain everything very, very eloquently. As a matter of fact, when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was touring and met Ramananda Roy, he was completely amazed by the explanations that Ramananda Roy gave. He acted as if he was learning from him. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya had mentioned, when you go, you should meet this person. Now, in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami mentions a little bit more about Svarupa Damodar. He says that Svarupa Damodar was the limit of scholarship, but he did not converse generally with others. He wasn't seeking to look like a big pundit or make a big show of his knowledge. He pretty much kept to himself, He liked to remain alone, and he didn't very much go out and see others. He wasn't a very social individual. We might call him antisocial in our modern world, but he very much kept to himself like this. Yet, he was understood to be the embodiment of Krishna Prema. It was said that he was like a second Mahaprabhu, and that he fully understood all of the inner meanings of the Lord, and understood the particular tattva and the particular mood of Krishna Bhakti that the Lord was in, and would manifest those to greater heights by the singing and by the verses that he would recite and like that. A little bit later we'll go into more of this, but matter of fact, anybody that wanted to present a particular book or a particular writing to Mahaprabhu had to first go to Svarupa Damodar, because he knew what was rasabhasa, what would disturb the mood of the Lord, what was not according to the proper teachings, or siddhanta as we say, and therefore he'd restrict that. The Lord, it says, did not delight in hearing any literature or song which was opposed to his mood of bhakti. And so Svarupa Damodar would decide if this presentation was pure enough to be presented to the Lord or not. So here again, during these moods of ecstasy that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu experienced, Svarupa Damodar would sing these songs of Vidyapati, of Chandidas. He would recite the Gita Govinda, and these gave the Lord great, great pleasure. He was very happy by this. Svarupa Damodar could sing like a Gandharva. He knew the scriptures like Brihaspati, and there was no one considered closer and more expert at enticing and encouraging the mood of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu than he. So he was very dear also to Advaita, to Nityananda, and many of the other devotees like this. So we find now that we've got these two personalities, Svarupa Damodar being like a second form of Mahaprabhu, with all of his musical skills, his Gandharva-like nature being given the name Damodar. And he, matter of fact, he even composed a book called the Sangita Damodar, which was a book on musical styles, musical art, if you will. So, in the daytime, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would perform kirtan. He would go out into the streets with his great associates, and he would perform the kirtan. But at nighttime, he kept just the association of Svarupa Damodar and Ramananda Roy. Ramananda Roy was understood to be Vishaka. Svarupa Damodar was understood to be Lalita. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was in the mood of Srimati Radharani. So as I mentioned in the beginning, now we have these three personalities. Mahaprabhu has appeared in the mood of Radharani to understand her mood and to enhance that mood and to protect the intrusion of outside forces in that mood. Lalita and Vishaka in the form of Ramananda Roy and Svarupa Damodar were there. So in this way, the three personalities begin to churn the ocean of love of God. Then of course we have Gadadhar Pandit, who was very, very expert in the Bhagavad. Svarupa Damodar was expert in the Kirtan. He would sing, Mahaprabhu would dance. All of these different devotees with their different relationships and responsibilities to assist in the mood of the Lord. Mahaprabhu would reveal during his kirtan different types of symptoms of ecstasy, which we've read descriptions of, tears manifesting and the hair standing on end and trembling and fainting and all of these different things, laughing madly. All of these manifested in the body of the Lord. Svarupa Damodar would sing very loudly in the kirtan, and the Lord would lose his external consciousness and fall down right on the spot. These amazing pastimes of the Lord were taking place on a daily basis. Shortly after these pastimes, the Rath Yatra began to take place. Actually, before I go there, there's one very, very interesting thing about Ramananda Roy's coming. When Ramananda Roy arrived in Jagannath Puri, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was very happy to have him. He said that when I met with you, I was so enlivened, and he asked him at that time, he said, you should abandon your service, because see, Ramananda Roy was like a governor for Maharaj Prataparuja in a distant province, and the management of that province was going on under the direction of Ramananda Roy. So Mahaprabhu said, you should abandon this and come and stay with me in Puri. And in the same way, Ramananda Roy responded, I have such responsibilities here. Anyway, I'll see what can be done. So in due course of time, Ramananda Roy had a meeting with Maharaj Prataparuja. And he said to him, my dear king. Now, remember, Maharaj Prataparuja had been constantly trying to get the association of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Puri. Mahaprabhu was having none of it. He did not associate with kings and worldly-minded people. So no matter what the king tried, Mahaprabhu would have nothing to do with him. So Ramananda Roy, he went to Maharaj Prataparudra and he said, "My dear king, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has requested that I leave your service and I go and associate with him. I know this is, a lot to ask, but what is your answer?" Maharaj Prataparudra became so ecstatic upon hearing the name of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that all types of symptoms of ecstasy appeared in his person. Now, Ramananda Roy is relaying this story to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, glorifying Maharaj Prataparudra. So he continues on, and he says that not only did he with great happiness grant me leave, but he gave me an increase in salary, a full pension, and a bonus. Excuse me. Excuse me. So he said, "You are so fortunate to be with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. I am desiring this for myself, but I cannot have such good fortune. So let me please facilitate your doing so." So in this way, he gave him all of the salary, pension, bonus. Yes, go, no problem. Someone else can run the kingdom. So Ramananda Roy said, when I saw the manifestation of love for you in the person of Maharaj Prataparudra, I could understand that I myself have no love for you. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was taken back. He said, "Ramananda Roy," he said, "no one loves me more than you do." Just imagine that. So, as I mentioned, we're entering into the Rath Yatra time. And of course, the first activity is the Gundisha Marjana, the cleansing of the temple in Gundisha. This is where Lord Jagannath will go for his snan. So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, as is described very elaborately in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, organized a wonderful, wonderful Mahotsava, a wonderful festival that was focused around cleansing the temple of Gundisha for the Lord's arrival. Because the temple did not get used regularly. It was, you might say, like a summer residence type of thing, where the Lord would come for some time and then leave. Excuse me. So very, very intensive cleaning was done. Mahaprabhu challenged every devotee that each of you go and collect a pile of dirt, and then I will inspect what is the size of the pile of dirt. Now there is great information put into the Chaitanya Charitamrita, both by Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami directly and in the purports of His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada, noting that this Gundisha Marjana pastime is representative of also cleansing the heart, of removing the dirty things from the heart. It mentions that all the devotees, no matter how large their piles of dirt were, and when they were all collected together, Mahaprabhu collected twice, 3 times, 10 times more than any of them did. And then after all the dirt was collected and swept out, then they began to bring in the buckets of water for rinsing and washing. And the devotees are pouring the water this way and pouring the water that way. Now I'll take a little sidestep here. This was one of the first stories from Chaitanya Charitamrita that I heard when I was a young brahmachari. Of course, that was many, many, many years ago. But I remember I had the service at that time of cleaning the temple room in the St. Louis Temple, and it was an old brownstone building. And I had heard this story, and so I became very enthusiastic and got buckets of water and started throwing it onto the walls. Not very intelligent. At any rate, I was quickly found out to be doing that and stopped, because everybody knows you can't go around a house throwing buckets of water. At any rate, So this was the mood. The devotees of the temple was a stone temple, marble temple, and they were throwing buckets of water and cleaning everything. One Bengali brahmachari came forward, and as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was personally cleansing the seat of Lord Jagannath, this Bengali devotee poured water over the Lord's feet and then captured that water and took some and then shared it with one or two others. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu noted this. He was very, very unhappy. He called Svarupa Damodara. He said, "Your Bengali devotee has performed such a heinous act. He has committed a grave offense. In the temple of the Lord, on the seat of the Lord, he has washed my feet and taken the water." Now, Srila Prabhupada notes that by the Lord's description of your Bengali devotee, it means that the devotees in Bengal, the devotees in the mood of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, have been placed in the charge of Svarupa Damodara Goswami, have been put under his direction. That means we're all followers. We're all in the care, if you will, of Svarupa Damodara Goswami. So Svarupa Damodara Goswami took this devotee by the arm and very harshly pulled him out and pushed him out of the temple for his offending the Lord in this way. In the Lord's heart, secretly, he was very, very satisfied that this devotee has understood properly. But externally, of course, we know this was not the Lord's mood. So, in a next instance, however, very shortly, that same Vaishnava was able to appear back in and continue on in the activities like that. So, he was asked, the Lord asked Svarupa Damodara asked the Lord, "You please forgive this Brahmin here and let him engage." And the Lord was very agreeable. So, it is, not the Lord's nature to be hard-hearted, to be, mean in that way. He's always looking for the welfare of the living beings. So, every year during the Rath Yatra festival, Lord Balaram, Lord Jagannath, Lady Subhadra would leave their temple and come out onto the carts, and then the carts would go. And with each cart, there were 4 kirtan parties. And Svarupa Damodara would sing in the first of these. Advaita Acharya in that kirtan party would be the principal dancer, which is amazing to me. Now, of course, Advaita Acharya is Mahavishnu himself, but Advaita Acharya is quite elderly. Now, some of us experience it as we get older. We don't have the facility to dance quite like we used to. Advaita Acharya was the principal dancer in the kirtan party where Svarupa Damodara was singing in the Rath Yatra. And then there were kirtan groups from Shantipur, from Srikhanda, Kalina Gram, 7 different kirtan groups altogether, and all the different sampradayas. In each kirtan group they had 2 drummers, and several kartal players and singers, and on and on and on like this. Very, very, very wonderful. Bhaktivinoda Thakur writes in his commentary on Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita that just as the Lord expands into numerous forms during the rasa dance, and just as he expands into numerous forms to marry the multiple queens in Dwarka, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu expanded to be in each of the kirtan groups at each of the carts during the Rath Yatra festival. Each member was convinced the Lord is in our kirtan group. We are so fortunate. The others are only wishing that the Lord would be there with them, but he is in our group. Bhaktivinoda Thakur writes that as the Lord's frenzied dancing suddenly came to an end, he became absorbed in the mood of Srimati Radharani when she visited Kurukshetra. So there's a song about the meeting in this way. It's a song of separation that the beloved offers. And so Svarupa Damodara Goswami recited this song. And I'll repeat it here as it's given. My husband is the same who took my maidenhead, and these moon-drenched nights we knew. The very breeze is blowing for the Vidya hills, heavy with the scent of newly blossomed jasmine. I too am still the same, and yet with all my heart I yearn for the reeded beds of the stream, where we knew our happy, graceful, and unending love. So this is actually describing the mundane relationship between a lover and his mistress, or the mistress and her beloved. But Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, upon hearing this verse, felt a great mood of separation that Srimati Radharani felt. So the Lord repeated this verse again and again and again. No one, it was mentioned, except Svarupa Damodar could understand the purpose of him doing so, because this was a mundane song at the time, so to speak. So, in this way, Mahaprabhu's ecstasies were once again understood by Svarupa Damodar, and he also enhanced these. So the kirtan again became frenzied, and the Lord became dancing ecstatically, and Svarupa Damodar knew, as I was saying, the exact songs to sing to enhance the Lord's mood and increase the Lord's dancing. And for days and days and days, the Lord would enjoy these topics from Svarupa Damodar. And for the nighttime, Svarupa Damodar, Ramananda Roy would discuss all these deep pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, enhancing his mood of separation, which was what the culmination of the pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Puri were all about. So it's mentioned that no one can describe the good fortune of Svarupa Damodar Goswami, that he was constantly absorbed, his mind, his body, his very soul, in the service of the Lord, in the satisfaction of the Lord's senses. And all of his speaking and all of his singing was simply to increase the deep, relishable mood of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Chaitanya Charitamrita describes Svarupa Damodar in this wonderful way. Now, I mentioned earlier about the different devotees coming to the Lord with writings. There was one devotee named Bhagavanacharya. Bhagavanacharya was actually a lame devotee. And I don't mean he was like we use the word, what a lame guy he is. Like, he was not very, but he was handicapped, as we would politically correct say. He was a crippled devotee, lame. But he had a very, very close friendship with Svarupa Damodar. Somehow or another they had met and a great friendship developed. Now, Bhagavanacharya was not just an ordinary person. He was a great Brahmin, he was a great scholar, and he was a man of very refined habits. He was not some uncouth personality. So he came to Jagannath Puri, Purushottama, to Purushakshetra, to be with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, to be with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And his dealings with Svarupa Damodar were like those of a very, very close friend. And he was completely surrendered to the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and completely submissive to the instructions of Svarupa Damodar. So occasionally he would even invite the Lord to come and eat in his residence. Now, Bhagavanacharya was also very generous and very unpretentious as a devotee. So, but his father, Satyananda Khan, he was a very materialistic person. Very, very materialistic person. And he had a younger brother named Gopal Bhattacharya, who was a complete Mayavadi. So we can see this unusual family. The father's a materialist, the brother's a Mayavadi, but the other brother, Bhagavanacharya, is this great devotee. This wonderful personality. So when Gopal Bhattacharya came to Puri, he had gone, and in a very straightforward way, Bhagavanacharya asked Svarupa Damodar to please listen to my brother speak. Now, of course, there's some family affection there. So Bhagavan knew the scholarship of his brother, so he asked Svarupa Damodar, you please hear my brother's commentary on Vedanta Sutra. So, they can gather some devotees, or you can gather some devotees around, and my brother will speak in this way. Svarupa Damodar, he became very angry, out of love, but very angry with Bhagavanacharya. And he said to him, "You have lost your intelligence in the association of your brother Gopal, and now you are eager to hear the Mayavadi philosophy. When a Vaishnava listens to the Mayavadi philosophy, he gives up the attitude that the Lord is the master and the living entity is the servant. Instead, he considers himself to be the Supreme Lord. The Mayavadi philosophy is so dangerous that even if a highly elevated devotee who has accepted Krishna as his life and soul hears it, it will change his attitude." So a very, very strict warning from Svarupa Damodara Goswami. No, Bhagavanacharya, he recounted, they're good friends. So he said, "We are all very fixed at the lotus feet of Krishna." He said, "Krishna is our Lord in our hearts and our souls. Therefore, this Mayavadi philosophy, it won't change our minds." Svarupa Damodar said, "Nevertheless, when we hear the Mayavadi philosophy, we hear that Brahman is the only spiritual reality, and that the universe of Maya is false. But we gain no spiritual understanding. When a devotee hears the Mayavadi philosophy that says that the living entity is only imaginary and that the Supreme Lord is a manifestation of ignorance, it breaks their heart and destroys their life." This is mentioned in Chaitanya Charitamrita like this. So, in this way, he chastised his close friend Bhagavanacharya, who, based on his family affection for his brother Gopal, was willing to sit and, all right, gather some devotees and let's hear this. So Svarupa Damodar set him straight. As we mentioned, that any of the books or writings that would come to the Lord would have to go through Svarupa Damodar. He would make sure that the proper rasa, the proper mood was present, whether it was poetry or songs or books themselves. So there was one poet that came from East Bengal, and he had the habit of writing according to his own whim, just whatever he wanted to write. So he had written a play, and he read the play, again, to our friend Bhagavanacharya, and he asked Bhagavanacharya to please have Svarupa Damodar give me his opinion on it. Because he knew that if Svarupa Damodar approves this, then everyone will know that my play is very good, and, like this.
It was a play?
It was a play, okay. Yes. So, many of the Vaishnavas had praised the qualities of this theatrical writing, this play, this little dramatical piece, and had thought, yeah, this is very, very nice. And so Svarupa Damodar finally agreed, all right, I'll read it. And after hearing just the invocation alone, Svarupa Damodar pointed out numerous faults and pointed out how it contradicted the Vaishnava Dharma. So when he saw the poet's distress at being criticized, because the poet was, used to glorification, a playwright never wants to read a bad review. So when he saw the poet's distress at this, he became a little compassionate. And he said, my dear sir, said, you go and study the Bhagavat from a proper Vaishnava. Take exclusive shelter of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's lotus feet. Associate constantly with the devotees of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Only then will you be able to understand all the waves of the ocean of Vaishnava philosophy. So, in this way, he set him straight and gave him very, very good instructions. Now, we mentioned Svarupa Damodar's tutelage, giving shelter to Raghunath Das. Govardhan Majumdar had this son, Raghunath Das. And Raghunath Das, we know the whole story. We've spoken about it. Had tricked his guru, the family priest, Yadunandan Acharya, and slipped away, and was in this way able to gain permission to run off and meet with Mahaprabhu for only 12 days. And Mahaprabhu was very, very kind to Raghunath. And eventually, when Raghunath came, Mahaprabhu turned him over to Svarupa Damodar and arranged for Svarupa Damodar to teach him, to train him. And from that day on, he was commonly referred to as Svarupa's Raghu. Very, very nice. When he came, he had traveled at very difficult circumstances. His body was thin, he was very dirty, and the Lord felt great sympathy for him. So he turned him over to Svarupa Damodar, saying to Svarupa, I am turning Raghunath over to you. I want you to take care of him as though he were your own son and personal servant. I have 3 Raghunaths in my entourage. From now on, we will call this one Svarupa's Raghu. And after he said these words, the Lord took Raghunath's hand and he placed it in the hand of Svarupa Damodar. Now, you're in his charge. Now, Raghunath Das spoke directly to Sri Chaitanya. No, I'm sorry. Excuse me. Raghunath Das never spoke directly to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. If he wished to ask the Lord something, he would present it through Svarupa Damodar. And he repeatedly told Svarupa Damodar, I want some personal instruction from the Lord about how I can execute my spiritual life. So Svarupa Damodar passed this information on to the Lord. And then Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu smiled and he said to Raghunath Das, he said, I have appointed Svarupa Damodar to be your instructor. You may learn from him about your spiritual practices and the goal of such practices. I myself, I do not know as much as Svarupa Damodar does. This was again the humility of the Lord. Nevertheless, if you do have faith in my orders, you may fix your mind on these directions. And then he gave the following instruction to Raghunath Das Goswami. Do not listen to gossip. Do not engage in gossip. Do not eat very palatable food. Neither should you dress very nicely. Always chant the holy name of the Lord without any expectation of honor, and offer all respects to others. Mentally, render service to Radha and Krishna in Vrindavan. These are the brief instructions I'm giving you. For more detail, you can understand from Svarupa Damodar. So, this is very instructive. In our process of devotional service, in our attempts at advancement, we cannot approach the Lord directly. As I mentioned at the beginning, we do not have the qualification nor the ability to directly approach the Lord. But it is through those that the Lord places us in the care of, that the Lord puts to instruct us, that we can develop these proper moods of devotional service. Who is more advanced than Raghunath Das Goswami? Yet Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu used him as an example to show the advanced position of Svarupa Damodar. Svarupa Damodar shall instruct you. He knows more than I do. Take your direction from him. He will expand on what little bit I have given you. So we should also have this same mood, not to expect that we can approach the Lord directly, but we should be eternally grateful and constantly appreciative of the presence of our spiritual master in our life. And always thinking ourselves to be his menial service, Svarupa's Raghu. Raghunath was not described as, oh, Raghunath. He was described as the servant of Svarupa Damodar, who was the servant of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Dasa, 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 nu dasa. Servant of the servant of the servant. So we can appreciate this mood from this final episode of Svarupa Damodar and his relationship with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and the example that was given in Raghunath Das Goswami. So we'll finish there for this evening. And once again, we would like to thank all of you very much for joining in. And if any of you have any questions at this time, feel free to please post them in our chat room. One devotee in the chat room is asking about newer episodes on the lives of the Vaishnava saints. If you go to Krishna.com to the video section, Krishna Live?
Krishna.com/TV.
Krishna.com/TV. Then there is a place there where you can see the all of the different episodes of the lives of the Vaishnavacharyas that we've done over the past year and a half or so. We want to thank all of you very much for joining us tonight. And as I mentioned, if anyone has any questions, we would like to remind you all that starting with this week's broadcast, we will be broadcasting every other Monday night. So twice a month. And so we want to thank all of you for joining. It's nice to see Manjesh is in the chat room with us. And we've had Bhakti Carol has been there. So many of our devotees that are very regulars with our broadcasts on Monday nights. We want to thank you all. And if no one has anything that they'd like to post in there, at this time it's a little later than usual, but we want to thank all of you. Remind you that if you're inclined to help to support Krishna.com, go to Krishna.com/donations and you can give your support to help with all the different programs that go on here. And if you want to see more episodes on the lives of the Vaishnavacharyas, then Krishna.com/TV and look for Lives of the Vaishnavacharyas. I think we have about 18 or 19 episodes posted there. So thank you very much, all of you. We do wish all of you a very happy holiday season. We may not be observing this particular festival in the same way as those who are in the Christian faith, but we very much know this is a festive time of year and everyone is looking forward to starting a new year. And so we offer our best wishes for a new year of devotional service and that everyone will have an opportunity to advance in the coming year. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much.